Hey guys, Arjuna here, the mindfulness coach. So today I wanted to talk about something that's really important to me as I go through my journey of self-healing and self-discovery and as I work with my clients and my loved ones, and that is trauma. So I think it's really important for us to identify in present day our triggers and then trace them back to the kind of the origins of where the trauma came from, and then we can work with that and release and update our thought cycles and create new behaviors and new patterns. And so some really important things for me is to kind of to say is trauma should never ever ever be compared. Okay, so we can all go through a very similar situation and all see that from our life perspective, completely different because we've all have different upbringings, we're all wired differently and built differently. So traumas to me is where our body and our mind are pushed beyond the capability of what they can deal with. Okay, so there's actually a lot of evidence and scientific work now that it does actually alter our brain capacity, and we do hold these traumas inside our body. So there's definitely a link there, and there's a correlation, and there's so much evidence that these things do still affect us, yet we don't talk about that. Okay, so something I'd like to talk about with me, because I think it's important, first of all, that we talk about this, is I was sexually abused as a child, and I think for me, I go back to that situation as I have many times throughout my healing journey in therapy, and look at that as a trauma. Now, this might sound strange, but I look back and I'm kind of like, maybe I've done all the work, but I don't feel the trauma associated with that, because I was too young, I didn't know what was happening. However, I do feel a lot of trauma around the shame process after of talking about it. So to therapists, of the questioning process with the police, of the court, that kind of situation. So there was the trauma to me wasn't necessarily what happened; it was the aftermath. So I just wanted to give that as an example first, because I think it's really important we talk about these sexual abuse, because it wasn't my fault. What happened, of course, I was too young, but however, it is my responsibility to heal from that now, and to identify my patterns and what things have happened to me because of that. Um, but yeah, so I guess that comparing to another situation in my life where I still remember now being at school and a girl took my phone. So I was probably about 14 and I'd been texting a boy. So that was absolutely, I can still feel it in my body now. That was so traumatizing, because somebody had taken my phone and might expose me for being gay. So there was so much shame that I put on myself, and that pushed me beyond my kind of capabilities and put me into this fight mode, or fight, flight, freeze mode that my body couldn't deal with. So kind of quite an animalistic approach, I guess. And it's like, I can feel it. I could feel how I would have felt. Okay, so I think probably trauma is something we need to talk about a lot more, and we can see and identify. I think it's such a sounds a bit crazy for me, but a beautiful process for me to go through, so I can see now, I'm triggering. Okay, what triggered me? And I trace that back. And sometimes it takes days. At the moment, I'm doing a 21-day abundance challenge, and we're doing a lot of childhood regressions. And I'm going back into those childhood, and I'm like, now I know something was traumatizing me there, because I'm still there. I'm still stuck in that process, but I don't know what it is. So I'm still there. I'm still searching for that, and that's tough to think about the amount of things that traumatize that would push us into this trauma state. And you think, wow, when does it end? But actually, with a lot of tools I practice and I kind of feel like I share. Once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes quite autonomous. So you can kind of, your brain starts to work through that process and starts to release it. So yeah, some things for me. Trauma, absolutely. Never ever let anyone compare with you, or even in a positive way, or I don't know if that's, or you've had such a hard life. We all deal with things completely differently, and we've all got our kind of our hand to deal with in life. There's no shelf life on trauma. So if you're feeling that 10, 20 years on, you're allowed to feel that. Give yourself permission. Don't let anybody shame you. Don't compare yourself to anybody. You know, allow that to come through, because it's these spike up in all sorts of strange ways, and you have to do the work. You have to acknowledge that trauma. You know, we can't, if we walk around going, oh no, 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 it's too, you know, breakups, you know, we kind of feel like when you go for a breakup, oh, you know, you've got a week of being in bed crying, or eating ice cream, and or you know, in the movies, and it's like, okay, well, you know, you feel ashamed or guilty, or maybe I shouldn't be feeling like this anymore. These things trigger up years. When you get into a new relationship, things can trigger, and you can be like, you know, this reminds me of that. And that's so important, to do the work, is to keep observing, keep mindful, keep witnessing you know, what's going on in you, observe the physical sensations, observe what's going on around you, and then you can start to trace that back. Now, it does take time, and it's not easy. I'd love to connect with you if you want to talk about any of these things, and kind of show you some processes of how to start identifying that trauma. But there's so many tools around that. So I hope this helps. It's something I just wanted to touch on because I'm seeing a lot about trauma, and I know that I'm identifying my traumas, and I'd love to do some work with you as well, or reach out, and because it is a beautiful sounds strange, but a beautiful process to start to go through, because you can take ownership, and you can start to take your power back and start to release this, you know, even with inner child work, with writing letters to a younger self and just releasing that and being at peace, releasing the trauma in your body. I promise you, it does feel good once you start to release it and take that power back. Thank you very much. Take care.